Hey there, Twisters. So Barry Trotz has been fired from the New York Islanders. I cannot believe this at all. I woke up at about 7:15 Pacific time this morning, and I see it on my phone when I pull up Twitter, and I thought this was some sort of joke, honestly. I had to go to the NHL's account just to verify it because this is so out of left field in my opinion. I know the Islanders certainly had a bad year. They were really behind the eight ball all season long, and how can you fault the coach in particular for this? That's my opinion. We're going to explore this. I want to know your thoughts on the firing in the comments down below. And where do you think Barry Trotz is going to end up? There are certainly several vacancies, and so he's going to draw a lot of interest, I would think. This guy is one of the most accomplished head coaches in this era. So let's take a look at this, all right? So for the first time in 4 years, the Islanders missed the playoffs under Barry Trotz. Their record on the season was 37, 35, and 10. This includes a streak of 8 consecutive regulation losses in November, and that eventually became 11 straight winless games. But you would think that if they were going to make a coaching change, they would have done that much earlier in the season. The Islanders were a favorite to win the Stanley Cup among a lot of us out there. I actually predicted them to win the Stanley Cup, so they were a very disappointing team this season, but it was kind of like that from the get-go. They started the season with 13 straight road games. They actually did okay in that period of time, but when they returned home, they just weren't able to really put together much of a stretch. They had some injuries. They had the COVID-19 bug, which wiped out 7 players on the team, so that didn't help whatsoever. I know other teams had to deal with that, but Pollock had injuries. Scott Mayfield, Cal Clutterbuck, Semyon Varlamov, and other players on this team were out of the lineup, some of them for really long periods of time, and so this team just wasn't able to have everybody together for a large portion of the season, and so that's one huge reason why I think they weren't able to be anywhere near the playoffs. Now here's a statement from General Manager Lou Lamoriello, quote, "It will be a tremendous understatement to say that this was not an easy decision to make. Unfortunately, it is my role to make the best decisions for the organization going forward, and I believe that this group of players needs a new voice, and this in no way is anything negative on Barry Trotz, who, as each and every one of you knows, is a tremendous human being," end quote. All right, well, Lou Lamoriello, let's just take a little look at what you've done over the past season to really set this team up for success. Signing Zdeno Chara, a player in his mid-40s, in addition to already having Andy Green out there, and Zach Parise, who had just been bought out, and then extending him for another year. Yes, I do know these guys came in on league minimum, but think about that spot on the roster. It's taken away from a younger, more exciting up-tempo player. Extending 34-year-old Cal Clutterbuck for 2 more seasons. I like Clutterbuck, by the way, at a fairly good deal, but he's a bottom 6 replacement player at this point in his career, 34 years old. Signed Kyle Palmieri to a 4-year deal worth $5 million annually, a guy who had 15 goals and 18 assists on the season. That's not a guy who should be making $5 million annually. Extended Ross Johnston for another 4 seasons, and most importantly, didn't make any moves to unload any of these contracts at the trade deadline. The worst team when it came to the trade deadline in that video I made at that time. Let's look at what Trotz was able to achieve both with the Islanders and with the 2 teams before that. So the Islanders appeared in the playoffs for 3 consecutive years from 2019 to 2021. That was the first time they had done that since 2002 to 04. They won 5 rounds with Barry Trotz. They took the Lightning to Game 7 of essentially the conference final last year. And by comparison, they won a combined 1 playoff round from 1993 to 2018. So Trotz won 4 more playoff rounds than the Islanders did in a 25-year span. He was also awarded the 2019 Jack Adams Award as the best coach in the NHL. He turns 60 years old this offseason. He's 3rd all-time in wins, and he'll actually move into 2nd if he coaches for 1 or 2 more seasons. He's 11th with 83 playoff wins. He's 2nd all-time in regular season games coached. His career as an NHL coach began in 1998 with the then expansion team Nashville Predators, and he held that job for 15 years until that got passed to Peter Laviolette. They missed the playoffs in their first 5 years, but they qualified in 7 of their next 10 years. And as we know, the Predators didn't exactly have that much star talent back then. Eventually, Shea Weber, certainly, and Pekka Rinne. But really, Nashville was always an underdog with Barry Trotz, or at least for the most part, and they were able to do some damage in the postseason. After that, he went to the Washington Capitals. He won the 2016 Jack Adams Award there. They won a playoff round in each of his first 3 seasons, but then of course in 2018, they brought the organization its first Stanley Cup. So with a pedigree like that, where does Barry Trotz go next? Well, the team that I saw surfacing the most on Twitter at least, and it really does make sense, the Detroit Red Wings. So is this really part of the Yzer plan with Jeff Blashill finally out? Will they bring in Barry Trotz, who could be essentially their Scotty Bowman 2.0? You got to think of some other teams who had interim head coaches for large stretches of this season. Teams like the Chicago Blackhawks with Derek King, the Winnipeg Jets with Dave Lowry. They've announced that they'll interview other coaching candidates, so Trotz could be one guy on their list. The Florida Panthers, interestingly enough, right? Andrew Brunette is actually the interim head coach, relieving Joel Quenneville. So if they get bounced in the first round, do they entertain bringing on Trotz? What about the Montreal Canadiens with Martin St. Louis? Certainly a good leader of men in a sense for that locker room. What about the Canucks? I know Bruce Boudreau did a terrific job with that team. I don't think that he leaves, but that's another team out there who hasn't officially filled the head coaching vacancies. Or do we see a team like the Vegas Golden Knights, who have Peter DeBoer for just one more year, snatch up Barry Trotz instead, because they do like to make huge decisions when things aren't going exactly to plan. I even think of my San Jose Sharks. Could they relieve Bob Bugner of his duties and try to bring Barry to San Jose? So anyway, you guys let me know in the comments below what you think of this firing and where do you see Trotz ending up next. Certainly, where does the criticism lie in this season? I certainly think that a lot of it has to be directed at Lou Lamoriello and his staff. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're doing a live stream every day. There's a playoff game, and I'll be providing some additional playoff content on this channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm Nick, and I'll catch you Twisters later. Ciao.